This was back in January of 2018. It took me a few years in L therapy to be able to talk about it. I'm okay now, and I thought I'm ready to share it. It's a little long story, but buckle up. I was part of a study abroad program in Bangkok, which was awesome for the record. Not long after being there, my fellow students and I went out for a night on the town. After a night of drinking and running AMAC in Bangkok, we somehow end up in a back alley illegal strip club. Here is where I think it is important to mention that I am a female, and I was the only female in the group that night. I saw things that I will never see in the 15 minutes we were there, and it honestly keeps me up at night once in a while. Let's just say that it was pretty obvious the women did not want to be there, and very quickly, I also did not want to be there. About 5 minutes into this really misguided decision, I realized that two guys from our group are talking to a guy in a red polo shirt. Oh man, there are many guys in red polo shirts scattered throughout the room, and none of them very look pleasant. One of my buddies, let's call him M, comes back over to me laughing, points back at the red shirt and says, "He's trying to get me to sell you to him for $10. But I keep telling him, "You're worth more $10. $10 is the highest," he says. "He will go." I have never noped out of a situation so fast in my entire life, and everyone went with me. I am an experienced traveler, so I did take the opportunity to use this as a learning experience for M, as to how quickly these situations can go south and how important it is to be on your guard in a foreign country. I'm thinking he learned his lesson. We all got out safe, no harm, no foul. I admit that I became a little more withdrawn from the group. Everyone went out partying every night. I went to school, occasionally ate out, did some daytime shopping at the market, or hang out in a high-end spa near the hotel. For like $20 to $50, you can get pampered like a queen, and a broke college kid took advantage. Two other girls joined me on my adventures, and we had a great time overall. Before we were scheduled to return back to the States, my other classmates, it was all M, finally convinced me to go out for a night at the town with them to some strip. People were eating scorpions with a stick. Some dumb girl from Australia who had joined our group took a hit of some gas we were selling on the street and threw up everywhere. People were packed in elbow to elbow, and there was a lot of rave-style lights or music. Sensory overload. I figured that I am with a group of 20 people from the US and Australia. If there was a time to drink and party in a foreign country, this is it. So the drinking started and the party began. With drinking, eventually comes to the need of a restroom. So I told M I was going to find one and I would be right back. M chose that moment to be a diva, start hammering back drinks and demanding everyone's attention. Might have been gone 10 minutes, tops. I came back and everyone was gone. I got the story later that the Aussies left and the rest of my group had to chase down M when he ran off in a drunken display for attention. So, I walk over to the entrance of this trip where we were dropped off and sit on a picnic table near the cabs to wait for my group. 2.5 hours goes by, it's almost 1 a.m. The street is still packed and I have seen no one from my group. I'm starting to get a little concerned because I have no idea where we are really. The others had been coming to this trip every night and it was my first time. Okay, experienced traveler. I don't even have the address to the hotel written down in English or in Thai. And I don't speak freaking Thai. Luckily, I haven't had a drink in 2.5 hours, so I'm pretty stone cold sober at this point. I have been here long enough to know that taking a tuk-tuk, an open wheelie cab thing, is much cheaper than taking an actual cab. But not long enough to realize that taking a tuk-tuk at 1 a.m. alone as a female is a bad idea. I showed the driver my room key. Oh, denied child I was. We negotiate the price and I hop in. But he goes in the opposite direction from where our cab came in to drop us off initially. We took a highway to get there, but my tuk-tuk driver is on all residential streets. Then he hits an alley. Okay, I am on red alert right now. He stops. I am poised, ready to strike should I need to. And next to me, on my left, a garage door rolls up. One of those rattly pull-up down by hand ones. And a group of men came out, one of who is holding a blue purse. I stuck around, just long enough to watch him start walking over and unzipping the said purse. As he moved and I bolted. I barely shook off the tuk-tuk driver and just putting one foot in front of the other, crying because I couldn't breathe and thinking to myself, I am going to die because I couldn't be bothered to go to a gym. I ran until I saw it, the familiarity of home, a 7-Eleven in the middle of this Thai neighborhood. I'm hysterical as I came through the door like the Kool-Aid man himself. The cashier starts yelling at me to get out in Thai, and I'm yelling in English that my tuk-tuk driver tried to sell me, and I'm not going anywhere. We argued for a minute or two, and I was begging him to help me. And this little tiny foot elderly Thai woman comes up to me with an equally tiny grocery cart full of 2-liter bottles of Pepsi. She takes my hand and my room key. She never says a word to me. Not a single word. She leads me outside, hails a cab, has a solid 60-second conversation with the driver, and pushes me into the back seat. The scariest part of my entire night, though, was that 15-minute cab ride back to my hotel. Not knowing if this little Thai woman had sold me out or sent me home to safety. The cab driver had to stop and ask for direction about 3 minutes from the hotel. And that was probably the moment I knew that was going to affect me mentally. The ride cost me $10 and I tipped him $60, for not selling me into the slave trade. Before this happened, I had been living in New Orleans for almost 10 years. Lived in okay areas, scary parts of town, and even one of the seediest motels that is frightfully operational to this day. That place begs for a novel on its own. But this story isn't about being a girl in a sketchy area of a very violent and depressing city. The city is its own worst enemy sometimes. It's about how one night my co-worker and myself did what we always did after working the same shift at our club on Bourbon Street. We split a cab from the line that waits outside of the hotels on Canal Street after breakfast at a high hop that you probably ended up at if you ever spent a drunken night in the quarter, whether you remember it or not. Dancers and cabbies in NOLA have a very good relationship. They watch out for us, let us tell them our weird stories at night, and we keep them very well since most of us know each other, and they just shoot us home for chips with the meters off. This time, my friend, I'll call her Gina, and I ended up in a car with a female driver. Uncommon, but it happened. We told her where we are going, first to drop Gina, plus the directions which required 2 whole turns down a very common path, to which the driver replies angrily to put the address in her phone. We reiterate the directions, and since she's being so aggressive, caught us off guard. Gina does it. The phone confirms what we said, and she starts driving. Taxi drivers in NOLA do not do this. By the way, that's a red flag 1. Red flag 2 comes when she starts driving in the opposite direction, ignoring us, saying and yelling at her that she's going the wrong way. It's when we look at her cabbie license on the seat and see not only is this a woman, not the man pictured, but she's taking us to the interstate to go, God knows where. We realize something terrifying is happening and start screaming to let us out as we reach for the handles while stop at light. It suddenly go click. Maybe they were unlocked or already locked before this, but she clicked it, which made us panic as this lady was still not responding to us. It wasn't until we said we were calling the cops, with Gina faking giving our location with the cab details. Who knows if any of that was even right. Before the woman swerved into the Chevrolet right corner before the overpass and let us out. Our frazzled selves threw a 10 into the car. We were scared and didn't want to antagonize this person further. Before they speed off, then went to sit at the bus stop before Gina called a cab directly, and I got into the damn bus in a frenzy spewing my story to the driver while shaking. Human trafficking is a huge and a very real problem in NOLA for tourists and residents, adults and children. There are news stories you can find easily and even more you never hear about publicly. We didn't know where this woman was taking us to, who or what her intentions were, but they didn't seem good. Dolled up with club makeup made us look younger than our 30s, paired with the casual sweats most of us throw on at the end of the night. Gina, a blonde, me, a pregnant brunette. That's a good haul for a night's work. The thing that scared me the most was that we were talking about the pregnancy when we first got in the cab. And maybe that was the reason. These people who were very familiar with the area, the people and the general workings of the city. It was clear that we were in huge trouble. To top it off, we both knew people who were the victims of cruel acts that ended in them not being around anymore. These things happened, but in the cab after 12 hours of being in heels. We weren't on alert, we just wanted to go home. A random lady driving someone else's cab in NOLA, please, let's not meet ever again. And to anyone visiting the city or local, regardless of your gender or how street smart you think you are, be careful. These people are pros and they don't care who you think you are. Oh, and before you say, you should have just taken a Lyft or Uber. A ton of people in New Orleans don't have cards and are exclusively cash only. I was one of them until very recently.